It's episode 614 of the Locked On Rangers podcast. On today's show, Leody Taveras is back in the big leagues and why I think he is here to stay this time. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On the Texas Rangers. I'm your host, Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, founder, and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. It is Tuesday, June 14th. Your Rangers are 29-31, sitting alone in second place in the American League West, 7.5 games behind the Astros. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers, and the best way you can help is subscribe on YouTube and comment anything below. Comment LOL Astros, comment yay Leody, comment I don't know. But today's episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Rangers listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. Use code LOCKEDON at checkout. Now, welcome back to the big leagues, Leody Taveras. I am very happy that he is back, but it is kind of sad why he is back. Eli White has been placed on the 10-day IL with a right wrist fracture. The median recovery time for that injury is about 5 weeks, and I think despite his great play, despite his fantastic defense and occasional offense, Eli White has been a one more player for the Rangers in 47 games this year. I think his time as an everyday guy might be in the books. This is going to take about 5 weeks for him to recover. Normally there's not a whole lot of lingering injuries with that after that just really scary collision with Charlie Culberson in the outfield on Sunday. But the Rangers talked about when they called up Leody, they could have done it a little bit earlier, but they wanted to know that he's ready. And he's ready to stay, and this would be his last call-up to the big leagues. They didn't want to have to worry about is he going to struggle horrendously like he did last year? Is he going to have absolutely no offense and then come back down, do well offensively, and then come back up and then still have a bad offensive season? Last year was just absolutely horrendous for him. In 49 games offensively, he was just pretty much an absolute zero. He had some moments, like a couple of weeks, where he looked fine, but overall was not a great offensive season for him last year. He hit 161 on base of 207, slugged 270. That is decidedly not great, despite him doing really well in Round Rock. One of his better offensive seasons, 17 homers, 343 on base for Round Rock last year. But he started off the season incredibly hot. An incredibly hot month of April. Everyone thought, okay, well, this is the time. He's going to do it. This is the time for him to come up. He had an OPS of 1,026 in 20 games in April. The Rangers thought, okay, I want to see him do it for longer than a month. And he did not have a good May. OPS under 600 in that month in 20 games. But they wanted to see him rebound. They knew he was just about ready. They wanted to see him get a little bit more confidence offensively. And in the month of June, in 9 games, he's got a slash line of 314, 400, and 486. So he was bouncing out of that slump, had a 5-game hitting streak in the minors before he got called up, and then extended it with a single in his first plate appearance. This is a great win by the Rangers, a comeback win 5-3 in the first game of this 3-game series against the Astros. Actually, it might be 4 games. I think it's just 3. I think they started a 4-game series this weekend. But either way, the Rangers went down early 3-0 in that second inning. And I swear, every time the Rangers feel like they have something good going this season, Taylor Hearn has to pitch against this Astros lineup that is absolutely destructive. Just incredibly destructive. And, you know, he didn't have a great first 2 innings. He allowed 3 runs in those innings, but those were the only runs that the Astros would score in this entire game. The bullpen came in, and they were perfect in 3 2/3 innings. Absolutely, literally perfect. Jesus Tinoco worked 2/3 of an inning, got a strikeout. Brock Burke came in, worked 2 perfect innings, got 1 strikeout. And then Matt Moore came in and got his first career save at any level, major leagues or minor leagues. Great moment for him. He is pitching fantastic at the moment and a big weapon for this Rangers team. Only 2 extra base hits by the Astros in this one, a double by Altuve off of Hearn, and then a double by Jeremy Pena, also off of Hearn. But not a whole lot of offense going for the Astros, just 3 walks and 7 hits in this one. And he wasn't great, but he was good enough in this one. Taylor Hearn went 5 1/3 innings, only allowed 3 runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. This Astros team does not strike out a whole lot, and he was not striking out a whole bunch of batters, but he was getting some really, really quick outs and was able to go pretty deep into this game, which was necessary for a team that just pitched a bullpen game on Friday and had extra innings games on Saturday and Sunday that went all the way to 12 innings. So this pen needed some rest. They needed Taylor Hearn to go at least 5 innings. He did that. He got 1 out. More than that, I thought maybe he could have gotten those last 2 outs in the 6th inning, but, it's worth it. Take him out. Play it better safe than sorry. But this is a great, great game by Ezekiel Duran. He made things happen in this one, which is what he has done very, very well in his time up. He has made things happen. He was the catalyst in the Sunday game. He had the 3-run homer in extra innings that should have been the game winner, if not for a blown save in the bottom of, I believe, the 11th inning. Then he had the smart tag on Luis Robert to end the game in the bottom of the 12th inning. And in this one, he made things happen in a very big way in the 8th inning. The Rangers scored 3 runs to take a lead, to tie the game and then take a lead. They got 1 run in the 3rd inning, which came off of Leody Taveras, who had a really great game offensively, and then made the final out of the game defensively in the top of the 9th inning. Leody had a single to start his game to continue that hit streak that was just out of reach of the center fielder for the Astros in Dubon. And then he worked he struck out in one of his plate appearances on a foul tip on just, I don't think I've ever seen this before, at least not to this degree of athleticism. Martin Maldonado, it was a foul tip, so you have to actually catch it for it to be strike 3, and he fouled it off, and it hit off the glove of Maldonado, and it popped up in the air, and he had to backpedal and then dive back to make a leaping grab while falling away. Very, very difficult play, and we know that Maldonado is there for his defense, not his offense, and he made a great defensive play to get Leody Taveras, but he worked a walk to continue a rally late in the game. But Ezekiel Duran is the guy who really made things happen. There was a sac fly that scored Leody, who was the first run in this game. The Rangers also got a run from Adolis Garcia, smacking a ball to the opposite field to score Brad Miller and get Corey Seager to third in the 7th inning, but the Rangers weren't able to do anything with that. But Ezekiel Duran, with the infield pulled in, this guy has some crazy hard hit rates, some very high average exit velocity. I believe it was top in the Rangers minors this year before he got called up. But he hit this ball at 98 miles an hour off the bat, and it was just deflected by shortstop Jeremy Pena, and it got into center field to score Charlie Culberson and tie the game in that 8th inning. Then he stole a base and advanced on, I believe it was a wild pitch in that 8th inning, but just making things happen because he was on third base. Yeah, he did steal a base and second base on a fantastic slide, by the way. The ball beat him there, but he worked this magical swim move slide that just, the glove barely evaded him and he got in there. I thought he was going to be out, but that was his, I believe, first stolen base at the major league level. Then a really wild pitch by Hector Neris allowed him to get to third base. And then Brad Miller singled him all the way in. A ball hit past where the shift, where a normal infield probably would have gotten him out, but they were shifting him. So he hit the ball where they ain't, and that scored the run, gave the Rangers another bit of insurance. Then Leody Taveras walked to extend that rally. Marcus Semien singled again to load the bases. And maybe Brad Miller could have, maybe a little faster runner than Brad Miller would have scored on that play. Doesn't really matter. Corey Seager, on a very hard hit ground, I believe it was over 100 miles an hour, scored the run to give the Rangers an insurance run. And bada bing, bada boom. Rangers had a 2-run lead going into the 9th inning, and Matt Moore did Matt Moore things, which in this case, in this year, is good things, and the Rangers were able to close out a win. Now, there is a little bit of minor league news to get to, and I'm also going to look at what this Leody Taveras promotion means and how it's going to affect this Rangers roster in the long term. But first, I want to tell y'all about today's sponsor, Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while a person behind the counter orders parts from their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You've got computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. You can save time and money while using Rock Auto. Why would you spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. The prices are reliably low, so go explore their easy-to-use website to find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in their How'd You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. The Ultimate NBA Mock Draft starts June 16th. With over 50 insiders, nothing equals the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft. The Locked On NBA Big Board draft experts plus the Odyssey insiders. First pick is June 16th. Search Ultimate NBA Mock Draft to follow so you don't miss a single pick. Now, there were some minor league updates, some roster moves that have been moving. Cole Ragans, congratulations to the former first-round pick. He is going up to AAA, not to the big leagues. Not quite yet. But he has had a great first 10 starts. His first start at the AAA level is going to be on Thursday. He has been the best pitcher by far in a Frisco Rough Riders rotation. That includes Jack Leiter. That's pretty darn impressive. At least numbers-wise. I mean, Jack Leiter, his stuff is a little bit more eye-popping, but Ragans has been better. He's just been straight up better. A 2.81 ERA and 51 in a third innings, 65 strikeouts, and 19 walks. Frisco rotation is now Jack Leiter, Cody Bradford, Zach Kent, Avery Weems, and Justin Slayton. So they still have that 5-man rotation. They want to go get a 6th man. There are a few guys in Hickory that are doing fairly well. Obviously, the big name is Owen White. He has had 9 starts, 52 and 2/3 innings, 10 games overall, 4.27 ERA, 72 strikeouts in just under 53 innings. That's 12.3 Ks per 9, 3.1 walks per 9, and 7.5 hits per 9. His numbers were a little rough to start the season, but lately he has been absolutely crushing it. He's got back-to-back games where he has gone 6 or more innings with double-digit strikeouts. His last start, he only allowed 2 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 11 strikeouts in 7 innings. Really, really impressive stuff for him. The game before that went 6 innings, only allowed 2 runs, and struck out 10, did not walk a single soul. Love to see that. It was a little rough for him to start, but he's got several games where he's gone 6+ innings, 1, 2, 3, 4 of his 10 starts. 10 games. He has gone more than 6 innings or more. Very solid stuff. Only 1 game where he's gone fewer than 4 innings. That's impressive. The number of pitches he's throwing is right about in line where you would expect. He just threw his his season high, might be his career high in 96 pitches with that 7-inning game against Bowling Green Hot Rods. I'd expect him to see him up sometime pretty soon. But again, it's more coming down to, because right now Frisco has a 5-man rotation, but none of these other guys are really looking like they're particularly ready to be called up. I mean, Cody Bradford has had a couple of rough outings that kind of skew his overall season numbers. He's been mostly fine. Jack Leiter has been mostly fine. You still want to see him get a little bit more seasoning at AA. You knew he was going to start at AA because that's what happens when you pick the guy 2nd overall and give him all that crazy money. Zach Kent still has some things to work on. Avery Weems, who is one of the only pitchers who's not walking literally everybody that he is facing in this starting rotation. He's got an ERA over 7. Justin Slayton's got an ERA over 7. Kevin Gowdy, who's started a couple games, I'm still not sure how much of a starter he is. He's 24 years old. Weems is 25, and I don't know. I don't know about Weems. He's got pretty good strikeout numbers right now, 10.6 per 9, but has been really, really homer happy in 2.3 home runs per 9. And Kevin Gowdy has been even worse about being homer happy, 3.6 home runs per 9 innings in 20 innings pitched. He's got 8 homers in 20 innings. That's not great. But none of these guys are looking outside of Ragans, who I thought it was only a matter of time before they call him up to AAA because he's just about ready, and there's space in that AAA rotation for a guy to get promoted. Of the guys who are next in line to get promoted, I'd say Leiter is the obvious answer. He's had a couple of stinkers, a couple of clunkers that have been, not great. He's still walking over 4 per 9 innings. That's not ideal. But again, he's been able to limit the home runs better than some of these other pitchers. Just like to see him go deeper, a little bit more consistently in games. He only threw 1 inning in his last start, which was, I believe it was on Sunday. But again, that's part of the program. These guys are having like every, third or whatever start where they're going only 1 inning. So he was kind of the primary pitcher, but that's what happens when you have a 6-man rotation and you're playing maybe 6 days a week. So I don't know. I think Leiter, it might be about July when they call him up. Maybe it'll be a little bit later than that. My initial timetable for how quickly he moves through everything, I thought he would dominate Double A a little bit harder than he has so far. But again, the stuff's really darn good. There's nothing to worry about. If he makes it up to the big leagues mid-season next year, that's still an incredibly aggressive, incredibly impressive route to the bigs versus if he starts the season in the big league rotation. I don't think that's out of the question by any means, but still, none of these guys are particularly blowing everyone away outside of Cole Ragans, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't call any starting pitchers up from Hickory to replace this slot in the rotation just to get a better look at Kevin Gowdy and Justin Slayton, see if these not great numbers are, outliers or if they're really probably not starters at the big league level or even at this level. But that's enough about the minor leagues. That's pretty much all that's going on there. Coming up, I'm going to get into what this Leody Taveras promotion means, what it's going to affect on this Rangers roster for now, and if Josh Smith comes back, what the heck is going to go on with that? But first, this episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Blue Nile has a simple online tools that let you choose the diamond, shape, and clarity as well as setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring. Handcrafted. Each ring is one of a kind. Looking for fine jewelry but you're having trouble choosing? If you don't know what you're doing, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, or if you just need a little bit of help, they're available via phone or chat to help find a memorable gift at every single budget. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Rangers listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. Use code LOCKEDON, that's code LOCKEDON, plus every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. Now, what does this Leody promotion mean for the Rangers? Well, it means Leody is their center fielder every day. It means that Adolis Garcia is going to be playing right field or left field, but I think pretty much right field is where he's going to be stuck in for the foreseeable future. It also means that Kole Calhoun is going to be playing left field. And, well, he's pretty much an everyday player. So that means your outfield is locked in every day. It's not as much of a question as it was before. With Adolis sometimes in center, sometimes you had Eli White in center, sometimes you had Kole Calhoun in right field, sometimes you had Adolis there, and sometimes you had Brad Miller in the outfield. Well, there's less room for Brad Miller. That's another thing that this means. He was brought in to be a platoon guy. They thought he was going to play a lot of third and left field. I don't really love what I've seen from him at third base defensively. Offensively, he hasn't brought nearly as much as I expected. He's got 7 home runs, and that's great. But he's got an on-base of 289, which isn't great. His OPS is 700, which is right around league average for his position. He's only got the 1 double. He's not walking a whole bunch. 10 walks in 135 plate appearances. That's not super great. I thought that'd be a little bit better. Batting average being low, that's about what you expected. That's about what it's been. But I don't know. Hasn't provided a whole lot offensively. He's been mostly, fine. But it also means that Charlie Culberson, his time with the Rangers might be coming to an end. He has been the worst everyday player, or the worst position player on this roster at this point. He has not done a whole lot. He's not mashed lefties like the Rangers thought he would, and that has been a huge part of his value. Also, there's more guys who can back up at shortstop. At the beginning of the year, it was pretty much just like Marcus Semien and Charlie Culberson. That was pretty much it. So if Corey Seager had an injury and was out for a couple weeks or whatever, then the Rangers just had 2 guys that could fill in there. But again, that's not the case anymore. They've got Ezekiel Duran, who can fill in a pinch. at shortstop. He can also fill in at second base. He can also play third base pretty darn well. He's made some pretty good plays. He's made a couple of errors that I think were a little harsh to be charged to him. He's also made a couple of plays that weren't errors, that weren't super great, but he's still learning the position. But his quick twitch ability and his arm both fit well for third base, and I think he's going to hold that position down for a while. He's going to make it a real difficult conversation, real difficult position battle in spring training next year when Josh Jung is healthy, when Josh Smith is healthy, and when Ezekiel Duran is healthy, as to which one of these guys is going to hold down third base. I think defensively, of that bunch, I think Josh Smith is probably the guy who has the best defense, but offensively, I think Josh Jung has the highest ceiling because his offense, I think, is just another tier above these guys. Not that they're not going to be good offensive players, but I think Josh Jung is going to be a really darn good offensive player. But again, he's had injuries that have caused him to miss significant portions of this season and last season. He's not going to be back until maybe mid-August with that shoulder injury, and when he comes back, he's probably just going to be DHing maybe even until the end of the season. Is it even worth it to bring him back at that point, or do you just want to get started on that rehab stuff and off-season work in Arizona? That's tough. This has been really tough for him. That was a kind of horribly timed shoulder injury. Not that any, basically season-ending shoulder injury has good timing, but after last year, I thought he'd be in the big leagues at some point this year, but gosh, that was just absolutely brutal timing for him specifically. And I don't think it's going to hurt him long term. I think he's going to be just fine. Maybe he ends up playing left field. Maybe one of these guys is probably going to be ending up in left field because I think all of their bats are going to be good enough to be in the lineup every day in a corner spot, whether it's right field, left field, first base, or third base. Now, before this current hot streak of Nathaniel Lowe, I thought, all right, well, maybe Nathaniel Lowe might be on the chopping block, but I mean, he had an 0-for-4 game in this one, but lately he has been absolutely red hot. Defensively, he's been quite bad, but I think eventually you might move him to DH, and then you kind of have one of these guys at first base. I don't know. I think Josh Jung, if they're going to move one of these guys to first base, it would be Josh Jung because his defense is the worst of the bunch. I don't think he can play shortstop, unlike these other two guys. But the Rangers have a real question as to what's going to happen there. They have Kole Calhoun in left field. He has an option for next year. But Josh Smith has started, he took batting practice, or at least took some swings yesterday. He's probably not far away from a rehab assignment, which means he's probably not all that far away from getting back up to the big leagues. And then you got a question of what you're going to do. Is Charlie Culberson going to stay on here? Again, that is another left-handed bat in Josh Smith. But he plays shortstop, he plays second, he plays center field, he plays third base. He's a very valuable guy, and he might be what the Rangers actually wanted from Brad Miller, except providing more defensive value. They talked about when Brad Miller went on the IL, you kind of had to call up two guys to take over his spot. But with Josh Smith, I don't necessarily know that you would need to do that. Granted, he hasn't played left field at all this year, and Leota is going to be there at least 5 days a week, so left field is pretty much the only open position because Adolis has been absolutely crushing it the last few games. I really wanted to make a quick note on that because Adolis, I've absolutely loved what I've seen from him. His advanced numbers are through the roof in terms of how hard he's hitting the baseball. He's got an average exit velocity in the top 10% of baseball. His hard hit percentage in the top 20%, expected slugging, top 20%, barrel percentage, top quarter baseball. It has been very impressive stuff. But the walks and the whiffs and the strikeouts have been kind of in line with where they were last year. They're getting a little bit better, though, especially in his last 3 games. He's got, I believe, 4 walks in his last 3 games. Where we go? Yeah, 4 walks in his last 3 games. That is incredibly encouraging. I get more excited for an Adolis Garcia walk than I do for a home run. Actually, that's a lie. But, developmentally, that means a little bit more than his home runs, because we know the home runs are going to come. He's just outside the top 10 in the American League with 12 home runs on the season, and he's been absolutely crushing it. He is an everyday player. He is an everyday guy, and with him manning right field, if Leody shows that he can handle offensively at the big league level and be about average offensively for a center fielder, then, all my hopes and thoughts about maybe the Rangers go out and get Joey Gallo. Maybe they don't need to. Maybe Adolis Garcia is just that right fielder for the foreseeable future. He's about a year older, I think, than Joey Gallo. He's 29, so he's still not that old, and he is absolutely crushing it, putting up some fantastic numbers. His numbers are better than Joey Gallo at this point. Defensively, I think he's a little bit better. He can hold up in center field. His arm is kind of neck and neck with Joey, who for one of the best outfield arms in all of baseball. Granted, I love that Joey walks, and I would like to see Adolis Garcia walk. Joey's got a little bit better raw power, and he is left-handed, but Adolis has been absolutely electrifying defensively and offensively this year and last year. So the Rangers kind of have just one spot in terms of their everyday order. Well, I guess two spots, just left field and third base in their everyday order for next year. I guess they kind of have DH, but it depends on how well Mitch Garver heals from this injury. Is he just going to be a DH only guy? And if so, that his bat is better than all those guys that I just talked about, except for, well, it might be a little bit better than Joey Gallo and Adolis Garcia, actually, but you want him to be in there and catching as much as possible, having that catching tandem of Jonah Heim and him. But the Rangers called up some guys maybe a little bit earlier than some people expected, but they wanted to see that they were ready to stay at the big league level, and all those guys at this point have done so. Sam Huff has proved he's not overmatched at the big league level. Ezekiel Duran has proved that he's definitely not overmatched at the big league level, and we're hoping that Leody Taveras can do the same, because right now it's looking like this Rangers team is solidifying into who they thought they could be. Also, bullpen-wise, even though they had a couple of rough bullpen games, there's a little bit of an update. There was Jose Leclerc pitched in multiple straight games in AAA, which is usually the last sign, at least for prospects, to show that they're ready, and also on the rehab assignment. If the guys are pitching in back-to-back games, that means they are just about ready to come back up, and it's looking like Jonathan Hernandez is about a week or two behind whatever Jose Leclerc is, so I think we could see Leclerc by the end of this week. I'm hoping that's the case. They might give him a couple of days off and then see if he's ready to pitch in back-to-back games again after 2 days off. And then if he is, then they'll probably call him back up to the big leagues once he is rested and ready to go, which could be by this weekend. Rangers could really use him. I mean, their bullpen has been kind of hit or miss this season. They've either been fantastic or not fantastic. But either way, it's apparently not, the closer role is not Joe Barlow's to lose. Woody said that he still has a lot of confidence in him, which is fine. I guess don't immediately give it back to these two guys, even though they are better than him. He hasn't been incredibly dominant this year. His ERA is back over 3 in 22 and a third innings. He's fine. He's pretty good. Done a pretty good job in the closer role, better than I thought he would. And he's hung on to the role this year because there was not a real candidate to replace him. And he's done fairly well, but he's had a couple of dust-ups in the last, 7 games or so. He's been touched for a couple of runs in, I think, 3 or 4 of his last 7 games, which is not what you want from your closer. But I don't think there's anybody that's particularly going to take that away from him. John King there was a thought about maybe that would be him or Matt Bush, but Bush has had a dinger problem, and I don't want a closer with a home run problem. And John King has had a couple of rough outings. But maybe Brett Martin, but he's got an ERA over 4, and he's on the 10-day IL. Brock Burke, maybe, but he's more valuable in that kind of swing role, the 2 innings whenever you need it most role. And I think that might be more valuable than an actual closer at this point in Major League Baseball. But again, the Rangers roster is starting to come together, starting to look like the mix of young guns and veterans, these young guns that are actually ready to step up. But the Rangers might have to make a decision on some of these older guys if Kole Calhoun is going to be an everyday guy or if the Rangers are going to maybe platoon him a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. But again, the guys who you'd be platooning him with in left field would be either Brad Miller, who is a lefty, or maybe Josh Smith, who is also lefty. So I don't really know what you want to do there. But it's a good problem to have when you have too many talented guys. Ezekiel Duran, I don't think is going anywhere. I don't think they're going to send him back down. He's been doing too well. He's been helping affect winning, and he has been coming up big. His strikeout numbers are the only thing that's really concerning. Also a couple of misplays defensively, but that's going to happen. That's going to happen for anybody, and he's made some plays that some of the other third basemen might not make. But this is encouraging. Leody is here to stay, and I think he's ready, and his bat is going to determine a lot of things with where this Rangers team is, what they do in the offseason, and how far this team can go. Because if Leody Taveras can be even an average offensive center fielder, we know what he can do defensively. It's absolutely special. It might be better. I think defensively he's still better than Eli White. And Eli White has been one of the best defensive fielders in all of baseball. And we know that Leody can be on that level. He's got a little bit stronger of an arm. And I think I overestimated the speed differential because last night Leody, his sprint speed was clocked in at 30.1 or maybe it was 30.2 miles per hour, which is right around where Eli White is. So again, that is absolutely fantastic. If you can have like one game or like a couple of instances, if you're in the playoffs and say you're up in like a game 6 of a World Series and you want to actually have a defensive replacement and you have your outfield of Eli White in left field, Leody Taveras in center field, and Adolis Garcia in right field. That's probably the best defensive outfield in all of baseball, if not the best defensive outfield that the Rangers have ever had. Like, it is some special stuff what those three can do together. All of them are Gold Glove caliber players, and all of them should be in the running, if not finalists, for Gold Gloves this year if they play in the right amount of games. But exciting stuff. Welcome back to the big leagues, Leody Taveras. I'm excited to see what this Rangers team can do in this second game against the Astros. It is a 1-2 in the AL West. Very fun stuff. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen of the day. For your next listen, go check out the Locked On MLB podcast. Paul Francis Sullivan, please call him Sully. He gives you his unique perspective on the major leagues, past and present. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Thank you all so much for listening to today's episode. Tomorrow I'll be back talking about another game against the Astros. Hopefully another Rangers win. Thank you all so much for listening, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.